Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. We have a good one for you as always. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here on the show today. What we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about the latest as the spread of the virus continues to complicate the push inside the Trump White House to reopen the country as they try to desperately convince us that the virus is no longer a problem. We'll take a look at that and the other coronavirus headlines, including a GOP senator who voted for Trump tax cuts and corporate slush funds, now says that there's not enough money to help everybody harmed by COVID-19. Very, very convenient. We'll be talking about that. Also, we're taking a look at the conservative protest movements and how the electoral left can achieve long-term power. That's on today's show. Thank you so much for joining us. Really do appreciate it. We're getting right into it today with talk of reopening America. Even with the number of coronavirus deaths in the United States set to pass 80,000 now, accounting for 1 in 3 fatalities around the world, the Trump administration has sought to convince the public that it is time to move on and get back to work. We have to get our country open again, President Trump said last week, even as he acknowledged that that meant more people could die. People want to go back, and you're going to have a problem if you don't do it. And again, this kind of comes to the thing where he says, talking about people, like, who are these people? Who are the people that are going to be, that he is trying to serve here? And we talked about this many times on the show. It's the people who control other people's labor in this country. That's just the way it is. The people who stand to profit from other people going in harm's way, they desperately want the country to go back. They definitely do. And I'm sure everybody else wants the country to go back as well. I know I do. I want the country to reopen, but not obviously at the expense of anybody's life when it should be completely when we should wait till it's obviously completely safe, because that is really just some of the most blatant serving of the rich and powerful that we've seen. And it's really just so kind of karmic how much injustice that there is in the whole idea of what they're proposing, right? Because literally think about what they are proposing to have people do here. They're proposing to have people, frontline workers, go back to work. They will be the least likely to receive the best care. They're going to be the most exposed, while the people who are ordering this change are going to be the most safest, and they're the ones who are going to stand to benefit from all of this. There's been no, and we'll talk about this later in the show, there's been no assurances of hazard pay. There's been no assurances of raising a minimum wage, of any sort of real basic protection set up in a broad standard by the government. It just has not happened, which is insane. But yeah. He says a few short days after he made those remarks, the White House itself became a possible hot zone, with officials racing to control an outbreak inside the cramped working quarters at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Says Kevin Hassett says, "It is scary to go to work." Top economic advisor of the president, he says on CBS's Face the Nation. And yeah, so this is the incredible irony of this here. At least maybe there is some kind of cosmic injustice that now these people who are kind of spearheading the push to put the poorest among us and most vulnerable among us in harm's way, now they're getting a rippling of fear through what this coronavirus is causing. But is it going to really reach the people at the top? Probably not. Like, pretty much everyone's going to be who really matters and has pull in the big rooms is most likely not going to die of any sort of coronavirus. So yeah, the 3 top officials leading the White House response to the pandemic began to quarantine themselves over the weekend after 2 Trump administration officials, a valet to Mr. Trump and Katie Miller, the press secretary for VP Mike Pence, tested positive. Late Sunday, responding to the scattered news reports that the vice president was isolating himself, the White House issued a statement saying that Pence would not alter his routine or self-quarantine. The vice president has tested negative every single day and plans to be at the White House tomorrow, says Devin O'Malley, a spokesperson for Pence. So they're not planning on doing any sort of quarantine, and they're at least they're pushing themselves out there as they plan to put America out there as well. Among those who will be sequestered for 2 weeks is Dr. Fauci, the director of the NIH sector of allergy and infectious diseases, and the nation's leading infectious disease expert. So will Dr. Robert Redfield, the director of the CDC, and Stephen Hahn, the commissioner of the Food and Drug Administration. Dr. Stephen Hahn. All 3 doctors are scheduled to testify before the Senate Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee on Tuesday about the government's response to the crisis and the arrangements that have been made for them to do so remotely. Senator Lamar Alexander of Tennessee, the Republican chair of the committee, said he will also participate via video link after his office announced Sunday evening that he would quarantine himself for 14 days after a staff member tested positive. And it's like, the crazy thing is this is actually reaching to the highest parts of the government. Like, we are seeing this happen in the highest parts of the government, like, time and time again, but nobody seems to really want to do anything. Nobody really cares, because it's just like the drive to restart the economy and to push profits into the hands of fewer and fewer people, and they have been. The coronavirus has provided another very easy opportunity for a massive redistribution, a massive transfer of wealth. Like, that's a big part of it. Like, that is what they're doing to push the wealth back in other people's hands. Like, we saw what happened with the original bailout plan, all that money going up, redistributing upwards as the Senate Republicans and House Democrats kind of worked well together to do. And you saw this thing happen with the small business, quote-unquote, small business PPP plan. And I think that stands for a Payment Protection Program. Like, it's very clearly happening. It is a massive plot to redistribute wealth upward, and it's just happening right in front of our eyes, and no one's really doing anything. Instead, what's going on is the push to get people back to work unsafely. Like, their money is there. Like, but right now it's only going one direction, and that's not in the direction of the people. It's probably the furthest possible way from the people. Here's some other quarantine updates. The Navy's top admiral, Michael M. Gilday, will also quarantine himself for 1 week after coming into contact with a family member who tested positive, the Pentagon said in a statement on Sunday night. Second member of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Joseph L. Langill, the chief of the National Guard Bureau, tested positive on Saturday, but a subsequent test was negative, according to the same Pentagon statement on Sunday. General Langill will undergo a third test on Monday to confirm his negative status, the statement said. So both of those guys were absent for a Joint Chiefs meeting with Trump at the White House. So that is good. Yeah, we'll take a look at how the economy is going for both stocks and producers and consumers and you. That will be coming up next. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very exciting Spencer Walsh Radio Network announcement for you. Join us May 16th for the series premiere of That's Interesting, our brand new show where we talk about the most interesting things happening in our culture during this crazy time. Whether it be books, movies, TV shows, whatever you need to watch, listen, or experience in any way, we will tell you about it on That's Interesting. So join us May 16th for a special Saturday premiere. All episodes afterwards will be on Fridays, and really experience the best of culture, all through the guidance of the Spencer Walsh Radio Network, as I will be bringing very, very special guests on for that time. So looking forward to seeing you in a few weeks on That's Interesting. Subscribe now. It's available wherever you get your podcasts. Yeah, it's very, very, very exciting stuff coming. That is coming up in just 5 days. We will be having the first ever episode of That's Interesting coming up for a special Saturday premiere. It'll be out sometime in the afternoon. We'll give you more details on that in the future. Very, very exciting stuff. We'll be talking about that a lot this week as we get closer to That's Interesting. But now let's take a look at how the economy is doing. U.S. stocks follow global markets lower on Monday as investors weigh the easing of restrictions on business activity in many countries against the chance of a resurgence of the virus. The S&P 500 fell nearly 1%, and early trading markets in Europe were also lower after giving up early gains. The investors are betting on what's called a V-shaped recovery, or a strong surge followed by the current plunge in economic activity, but a quick recovery is not assured, especially amid worries the second wave of outbreaks could eventually undermine efforts to get economies back on track, which is a very, very real possibility. Like, we've seen this happen multiple times where there's been this disturbing resurgence of cases. For example, there's just another case reported, a singular case, I believe, reported in Wuhan where this whole mess all started. So that is an incredibly disturbing thing as well. But hopefully the resurgence, if there is any, which Dr. Fauci has been talking about a bit as well, has been very, very problematic. But in France, Spain, Greece, the Netherlands, and other countries in Europe, different restrictions on business activities were eased on Monday as part of a gradual approach as authorities try to balance economic recovery with the control of the deadly virus. And the thing is, you see, they're doing restrictions. Why can't we do restrictions too? Why do you have such a big problem with restrictions? Well, first of all, the thing is, their restrictions were incredibly more restrictive than the ones that we ever had were. Like, I mean, I've been driving for a little bit. I mean, I haven't been like getting out much, but I do drive sometimes around, and I see that they're and I like exercise, but there is so many cars on the road, and the fact that they're all going, you got to believe they're all going somewhere, first of all. Second of all, in places like France, you're not even allowed to exercise a certain distance from your home. You have to stay within your home. You can't go on miles and miles long jogs. You're forced within, for at least for exercising purposes, a certain distance away from your home. I forget what distance it is, but I think it's like 100 meters away from your home. You cannot leave that if you're exercising, which is a big factor. Like, that's a big thing that the government has put in, and it's something that is not even close to being true here. Like, if there may be another American Revolution, if that happened, like, we may have to, there may be a national freakout if that were to actually happen, of people putting limits on exercising that you can leave from your home. Like, you have to go like twice a week for the store, and they track like how many times you've been to the store. In some other countries, like their restrictions that they're easing have A, been in place for a lot longer, and B, are more restrictive than our restrictions ever began to come close to being. Like, that's the reality of the situation there. So in France, Spain, Greece, the Netherlands, they're trying these gradual approaches. The United States, Trump has pushed for the reopening of the economy, and more than half the states have reopened businesses in some way or plan to do so. The stock market has shown a remarkable indifference to the dire outlook for the economy since it began its rally on March 23rd. That was the day the Federal Reserve signaled it stood ready to pump an unlimited amount of dollars into financial markets to keep key borrowing markets from malfunctioning. The S&P 500 has risen roughly 30% there, because it's like what the United States government has said to the stock market is, you cannot fail. I will cover you no matter what. We will cover you no matter what, and you cannot fail. Like, there's no way you can fail. And with that, what's the reason for the stock market to ever decline? Like, it's pretty much at this point, it's been untethered to the actual economy, and really, when you come to think of it, because it's like that with that assurance that it's pretty much essentially very, very hard for you to fail, if not impossible for you to fail. Like, then why would you ever care about putting that effort in? Like, that just makes no sense. So many consumers expect to lose their jobs and see home prices stall or even decline, meanwhile, over the coming years, according to the Federal Reserve survey. Giving the people's homes are often their largest investment. This could spell even more trouble for the economy. For the first time since the Federal Reserve Bank of New York started its survey of consumers in 2013, the median consumer did not expect home prices to increase over the next year. More than 44% of April respondents actually expected their home prices to decline, and that pessimism was based on broad-based across demographic groups and regions. So they think that their home prices are going to. People think their home prices are going to decline. People think that nothing good is going to happen economically for a very, very long time, and that obviously has these ripple effects on the market as well. So as recently as February, consumers expected 3% home price appreciation. Sorry, they thought their home prices would be going up. The swift deterioration in their outlook underlines how much the coronavirus lockdown, which has left millions out of work and means those harder to come by, could threaten the housing industry. Mortgage credit availability has tumbled to its lowest level since late 2014. Mortgage Banker Association index showed last week as lenders shy away from borrowers with low credit scores and those looking for large mortgages. And pretty much that's what we've really seen happening. Is it's harder for people who are not well financially secured to go into the home market at this time. Not that you really could with even the social distancing restrictions, but it's harder for that as well, which can be very, very devastating for the economy. The thing about this is that it all has ripple effects. It all comes back some way. So consumers will also glum in among other dimensions.